Ooh, suddenly soundtracks are here to provide you. Suddenly soundtracks will show you care. Oh, be more the soundtrack inside you with sweet understanding. Oh, with sweet understanding. With sweet understanding. Soundtracks are your friend.
Hey guys, welcome to Suddenly Soundtracks, a show where we judge a movie solely based on the soundtrack that it provides here on the PJ Campbell network right here. We are doing one of the most, this is Pride Month, it's June, so this is pretty much the pinnacle of gayness. It's Elton John himself, and it's Rocketman. I can't believe I said that, but yeah, it is Rocketman. It's Elton John. He's the best bitch out there. And we have 3 big Elton heads along with myself, 4. So I'm going to throw it to Brooklyn with Rocketman. What are your thoughts on Rocketman? And when did you first see it? And what is your connection to Elton John?
Okay, so Elton John, it was one of my mom's favorite artists growing up, so I was introduced to him at a very early age. I saw Rocketman on a Tuesday afternoon. There might have been 10 people in the whole theater, and I was the youngest person by about 30 years, and I had my toes tapping the entire time, singing with most of the songs, and it was a really good, just a happy movie overall, but it had a really good overlying message of self-love, which I think is really important in today's climate. Yeah. But yeah, it's such a damn good movie.
When did you first hear of Elton John? Are you an Elton John fan?
Yeah. Sorry. Are we talking to me or Peter?
You.
Oh, me? Oh, sorry. Yeah, I've been a fan of Elton John. Casually, I would say whenever I was probably 8 or 9, but then I got seriously into Elton John's music in college. Sort of went back into my parents' loves and explored a little more.
Cool. Peter, what are your thoughts on Rocketman when you first saw it, and when did you first get introduced to Elton?
I love Rocketman. I saw it Thursday, premiere day. I saw it in a VIP screening. My theater did a VIP screening. Got this cool little badge, the shirt behind me, and the poster there. It was there was 30 people in the theater. Me and my friend were by far the youngest people in the audience, probably by a larger margin than 30 years, like Brooklyn's screening. I'd been a fan of Elton John since my 7th grade year, so maybe when I was 12 or 13. And I've just slowly learned more and more about him, and I love everything he does. So naturally, he's just my favorite artist, and Rocketman is terrific. I love what it does with having the music actually be musical numbers in a music biopic, and it suits Elton John so well that it is used in that way. And I think it's a terrific movie. It is so much better than Bohemian Rhapsody, and I can't believe it didn't do nearly as well at the box office or awards or anything. I mean, 2019 was a phenomenal year for movies, much better than 2018, but still, it deserves so much better than what it got. But yeah, it's terrific, and supporting Elton always with my perfect t-shirt. So yeah,
Elton John 110%. Now returning to Suddenly Soundtracks for the first time in 2 years since he did Little Shop with me, which was our first episode, is one of my very, very close dear friends, Donald Gormley, who was also part of my Billy Joel Meatloaf band, The River of Paradise. He sang a lot of Billy, and we are incorporating Elton John into the show now too. So, and I know Don has a lot of similar music tastes as I do. Don, when did you first hear Elton? When were you introduced to Elton? And what are your overall thoughts on this soundtrack before we get into it?
I was a Billy Joel fan growing up, but one of my first cassettes was Billy Joel, and I'm sure I've heard when I was young that I heard. I think I'm at least a decade older than any of you guys, but when I was young, I'm sure I heard. I do remember Crocodile Rock and certain hits, but I gotta say I got into him on my own after Made in England came out. Yeah. and that for me started a stretch. I wasn't really I was born yet when his big records came out when he first started, but yeah, when after Made in England, that when I got that album, I just started discovering everything after that, and for me that was the beginning of a stretch of my favorite albums of his, other than Goodbye Yellow Brick Road and probably Captain Fantastic. But other than that, my favorite albums are
the current
Made
ones.
in England one, like especially like in the 2000s era. I just love the songs that are on it, are on the albums of that period. But I remember the first time seeing him that I remember, I feel like I saw him on his own at the Garden one year, but my first time remembering seeing him was my mom was a registered nurse at a city hospital, and one of her doctors had tickets to a show of his at Radio City, but he couldn't go, and I think after trying to give them away, he gave them to my mom, who took me, and it was just Elton and a piano for about an hour and a half at Radio City, and we had probably 15th row. It was just phenomenal seats. And it was for Chrysler. They unveiled they unveiled some cars, so they had him play like a full set. It was just such a remarkable acoustic, piano wise night. And so that's how I got into him. And I just he's been phenomenal. As far as the movie, the soundtrack, I'm kind of the opposite feeling of what Peter was just saying. I actually dislike the fact that the music's part of the storytelling. I'm not saying it doesn't fit him. I agree that it does. It's just not my style. It feels like a jukebox musical on Broadway, which I'm not really a fan of. Just same with Bill. Billy's, even though I don't listen to him as much right now, Billy Joel is probably one of my top of all time. And even Moving Out, I just sat there and I'm like, and I have no problem with dance shows, like I could sit there and listen to a Billy cover band, but it was part of the show, and I just wasn't feeling. I went expecting something along the lines of Bohemian Rhapsody, and not that I'm in love with Bohemian Rhapsody. I'm not, but I just expected it to be part of the story. Part of not part of the plot being told, but part of we're in the studio recording. This is how we met Bernie, so this is when they wrote these songs and blah blah blah. Just more definitive, not part of the plot, and especially when they throw it to other people to sing. I'm not a fan of that. But visually, it's the troubadour scene is. I'm not a fan of the concept, like the idea of the film being like that. But as far as watching that was a phenomenal scene. I mean, the visuals are great, and Taron Egerton, it was phenomenal. And the guy who played Bernie, I forget his name. He was incredible too.
Jamie Bell.
Jamie Bell.
Yeah, right, Jamie Bell. So yeah, no, I mean, it was a fine enough movie. I just I'm not a fan of weaving the music into the actual dialogue of it. It's just not my thing.
Yeah, I was introduced to Elton John through my dad, and along with Billy Joel and Milo, but I just kind of grew up with that music, loved that music, loved performing that music, and all these songs tell stories, and they make for great films, and they make for great musicals, and that's kind of like my style of music is heavy piano, lots of storytelling, lots of choruses, lots of choirs, and that's basically what Elton is. I'm with Don. I really prefer his current albums to his earlier works. I love Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, but give me The Union, give me Songs from the West Coast. I love those albums a lot more than Don't Shoot Me, I'm Only the Piano Player, or Caribou. I just gravitate more towards the current stuff as well, because
don't even get me into the 80s stuff.
Yeah. Oh, you mean the Fox? Oh God.
Jump up. Yeah.
But your lip is a good one. But yeah, we're gonna go right into this, guys. Though we're getting into deep cut territory. So how this show works is simple. We go through each song track by track. Each panelist, depending on how they feel about the certain song, will judge it. And you were given these. These are your scoring systems: rockin', hard rockin', download it, shuffle it, one time listen, skip it. It's pretty much whatever you would give or prefer this song. Just tell me what you would score it by that. It just gives it a little bit more creative pizzazz. So we're gonna go into this, guys, into the first section. I'm gonna go into threes on this soundtrack. The first three tracks are The Bitch Is Back, I Want Love, and Saturday Is All Right for Fighting. Brooklyn, I'm going to give you the honors. What are your thoughts on these three songs, and what do you give it?
So for the bitches back, when you go to the soundtrack version, I agree with Peter in terms of I like that it's a jukebox musical. I didn't know that going into it, and I agree that it sort of fits with the style. And the bitches back is a really good example of setting the tone for what the movie would eventually become, and like other songs in the future. It's actually I kind of prefer it over the original. The original is just it's kind of just like middle of the road or whatever, just B tier. It's fine. There's probably like 15 other songs that I would put over Bitches Back. I Want Love is one of them. This is the one that I'm probably going to spend a lot of conversation on because this for a long time was my favorite Elton John song, and because of how in the original version how it's so simplistic and really you can take that simplistic approach and it can either be really good or really bad. And I think they executed it sort of flawlessly. Especially with the storytelling, like even that first verse alone, he talks about how it's like it's really sort of like his relationships in the past. Like I want love, but it's impossible. A man like me, so you're responsible. So it talks about how he's beaten down in the past. In the movie, though, I think they do it. I think they do it well. It's hard to get that concept on the first watch, but on the second and third, I think it does a really good job of attaching lyrics to certain characters, and it fits those relationships really well. Saturday Night's All Right, though. Speaking of Kit Connor, who played the middle version of Elton John, that opening part is kind of rough.
It is.
It's only because it's his age, and I was in those same shoes before, where you get to that age, and it's not necessarily you want like the higher, you want like the melody parts, you want those lower parts, and it's like, oh, I can do that first of Saturday Night's All Right, and it's like you just really can't, and it sucks because that's essentially Taron's introduction into the movie. And it's such a good job, especially when they get to that musical instrumental or whatever, or the interlude, I guess it would be. And when they get to like the actual fight part, and then when they break into the song again, I remember being in theater being like, oh shit, like this is actually like, they're trying to like wow you.
I like how the band pretty much fades out during the second verse, and you just hear the drums, and it's like that tapping that's not on the record. I do prefer that. Yeah,
it's weird because that song in particular, it was weird to get chills on my spine from it being like sort of the third time that I've heard a version of that song. Believe it or not, Nickelback and Kid Rock do a really good cover of Saturday Night's All Right. It was the opener for a stretch of time during the NHL playoffs in the late 2000s. That had been like the hype up song before Hockey Night in Canada.
That's great,
and it's actually really good considering it's Nickelback and Kid Rock. But then the original version, you can't go wrong with it. It's the most rocky Elton John tune, but it's worth it.
Cool. So what do you give all three of those?
Are we basing it off of like their combined thing, or are we rating each one separately?
Just rate the actual soundtrack version. Do you think it's superior to the studio?
Okay. So for the soundtrack version of Bitches Back, I would say it's a 4. It's it's a download it. I Want Love, it's a one-time listen just to really get idea of what the character's going through. And then Saturday Night's All Right. I would also give it a 4, but if you take out Kit Connor's part, it's a 5.
Okay, that's perfectly acceptable. Okay, Peter, your turn. What are your thoughts on these 3 tracks?
I'm a little bit higher on the Bitches Back than Brooklyn is in the original. The first time I saw this movie and it breaks into song, I got chills, and I still get chills every single time. It just like that transition into the musical style. I love it, and for me, that really just makes the song because you feel like just immersed in Elton John and everything that he is in that exact moment when everything hits the screen. And I mean, the original is terrific. I think, it's Elton John going at it, rocking. And then for I Want Love, I really do think that, like Brooklyn said, it is really great at how they put the lyrics to different characters. And I actually like, even though it's right at the beginning of the movie and it's not super developed in its characters yet, I almost tear up every time we get to this song because it's just so like the music combined with the fact that like, man, this guy or Elton doesn't have people around him besides his nanny who love him, you know, and it, you know, it just breaks your heart. And the original, I don't like it. I would say I almost don't like it as much as how it's done in the soundtrack. But I mean, it's great. You can feel the raw emotion in Elton's voice when you listen to it. And so yeah, with Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting For, I think that this is probably the best version of like putting the song to a musical like number. I think it's really well done. And then the transition from teenage Elton John to, you know, late or early 20s Elton John is fantastic.
Yeah, the introduction to Taron Egerton in that second verse is phenomenal. It's just perfect, and I like, as I said, the band falling out is great. So what do you give these, Peter?
For The Bitch Is Back, I give it a rocking. I Want Love, I'd put it at shuffle it, and then Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting For, I'd give it rocking as well.
Okay, cool. I'm interested with this, Don. Your turn. What are your thoughts on these 3 tracks and how they compare to Elton's versions?
Yeah, I can't get the image out of my head of Bitches Back being basically the first song you hear in the movie, and like the entire town is doing a dance routine to it. Again, I've been in tons of musical theater. I get it, but it just wasn't what I wanted out of the movie, and I can't get that image out of my head when I listen to the song. And even just the intro of Elton, the character sitting in therapy. I love the outfit when he first walks in. I love actually the first thing you hear, I believe, is that crazy slowed down intro of Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, just the orchestra. Yeah. Only like the 2 opening, you know what I mean? And it's as he's walking through the hallway. That to me is an epic. Even though it's not a rockin' song at that moment, it's just this glorious Elton-ness, and you see the devil horns and the huge ass, gargoyle wings or whatever. Like that to me is memorable and very striking and gets me pumped for the movie. And then he sits down and then he starts, he sees the young himself in the therapy room and he starts singing to it. Once it becomes a Broadway musical, it's no longer a movie about John. It's fitting songs that weren't even necessarily written for him into his life. Which is fine. Again, if it works, that's great. But I can't say there's anything that didn't work as far as plot wise, but it just doesn't compare to the originals where it's Elton singing. And so Bitch Is Back. I don't know. It doesn't, to me, it doesn't fit when little Elton starts singing it. And I Want Love, I'm not a fan of. I'm not a fan of the whole. I want to reemphasize. I have this veil of
it's fine.
Not liking how they, the general vibe of the movie, like what the stylistic part of it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like I love the original, and it just doesn't compare. And then Saturday Night, I dig it. I dig Saturday Night. I agree that I'm not a huge fan of when the younger Elton didn't sell it. But it starts kicking off. Like it is a great kind of, even visually, it's a great intro to Taron Egerton. But then it loses me because, again, the dance routine at the carnival, and so again, taking the visuals of the movie out, they still inject that like almost like a Bhangra Indian style to it. I know in the movie they have like Indian population dancing, and it's, again, I guess from that type of movie, that type of stylistic take on it, that's fine. But take the soundtrack, you don't see the dancing, but the music's still there, and it just doesn't serve a purpose to me. It doesn't. And I guess I'm not, I don't write music, so I'm not a conductor or a composer, so I don't really get the whole why it had to. And I have nothing against Indian music. I've danced to it at a wedding, but it doesn't serve a purpose when the visuals are taken out. Just because that's how the song was, I guess. But so I would rate Bitches Back.
These are the ratings, by the way, Don.
Okay, good. Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. Bitches Back. I would do Shuffle It.
Mm-hmm.
I Want Love, One Time Listen, and Saturday Night Shuffle It.
All right, that's all good. This is a pretty interesting panel so far. There's a very valid points, Don. I'm just gonna go quick with mine. Bitches Back, I feel like, and I think maybe Brooklyn, you can agree, it's too short. It's way, way too short. I feel like especially when most Elton shows start with Bitches Back. So I wasn't surprised when the movie started with Bitches Back, and it really does give that momentum. The opening song gives the momentum of who Elton John is. He is a bitch. He really is a bitch. But and that's that, and it sets the tone of the film. And I would give that a rockin'. I Want Love, I'm with Don. It was destroyed. I feel like I've watched this movie many times, and I feel like the momentum of that song is just lost, and the point of that song is lost when you have multiple people singing it, and it just gets kind of muddled and gluey and kind of not really pleasant. I would give that actually a skip it. And then Saturdays, I love the arrangement of Saturday, even though the kid's verse at the beginning, he doesn't really sell it vocally. If Taron was singing that verse with just the piano intro on the soundtrack with his second verse, I would think that this would be better than the actual Goodbye Yellow Brick Road version. So to me, Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting's a rock, and I really enjoyed that number. But we're going to go into wave number 2, guys, which is going to be, okay, Thank You for All Your Lovin', Border Song, and Rock and Roll Madonna. Now, the interesting thing about Thank You for All Your Lovin' is Elton never actually officially recorded this song. He only played organ for the band he was playing for, but on the record, Taron actually sings the song "Thank You for Loving You," and then "Border Song" is a classic, and "Rock and Roll Madonna." All right, Peter, I'm going to go to you. What are your thoughts on these 3 songs?
For Thank You for All Your Loving, I mean, this was the first time I'd ever heard this song or knew what it was, and I like it. I like it. It's simplistic. It's upbeat. It's got a full sound to it. Mm-hmm. And it's in the musical, it works as a kind of a transitionary thing, and it's good for what it is. I really like it for what it is. The original is fine, but you can tell it's a demo, and it's not, it's not a fully fleshed out record when Elton's singing it. So I mean, I do like the soundtrack version better, but that's only because probably Elton didn't.
I'm surprised they put a demo in the movie. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. So, and then with Border Song, it's done fine in this. I don't, it's fine. It's not done terrifically, but it's not done poorly, I think. I like where it is in the movie and how it's used, but with just the soundtrack, it's there. I really, really love this song when Elton John does it. I really think it's terrific, and I've only grown to like it more and more over the years. At first it's one of those that's kind of, you might not enjoy it as much, but it grows on you over time, and I really like it. And then you showed us the Aretha Franklin version in this as well. I don't know if you want to talk about that.
Go for it. If you listen to it, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, the Aretha Franklin version, I've actually had this in my Elton John playlist for a couple of years now, and I really like what she adds to it, the soul and gospel feel to it. It's very clearly Aretha Franklin, and I mean, I love her music and everything she does with it. And then in the song, the key change, while it's really abrupt, I like that it feels a little more gritty after that, and it adds just another kind of layer to it, I think. So that's my thoughts on Aretha Franklin's version. But then Rock and Roll Madonna, I kind of like the soundtrack version a little bit more than the original. I'm not like, I really like the original, but I mean, it's not my favorite. But I do like the unique instrumentation on the original part a little bit better. And it's a good transition song, super upbeat, and it's a fantastic kind of just old school rock and roll piece. Mm-hmm. For ratings, I would say Thank You for All Your Loving. I would say that's a download for me. Border Song, it's a shuffle, and then Rock and Roll Madonna, that's a shuffle.
All right, interesting, Peter. Brooke, I'm going to go to you. What are your thoughts on these three songs? I'm interested about this. Go for it, bud.
Yeah. So thank you for all your loving. Similar to Peter, it was sort of like for the movie, it's sort of like a transition song. I believe they're in a car for the majority of it. So I didn't really know a lot about it. But then whenever I actually like sat down with the soundtrack and got to listen to the entirety of the song, and I'm like, cool, this should be a really good like deep cut of Elton's. And then it turns out that it was a demo. It sucks because it's actually one of the better ones. Even going back to the demo, like I understand why he didn't put it out, because the demo has sort of like a Doorsian kind of vibe, and that really is separate from what he would eventually become into, like probably like 7 years later. But yeah, it's solid. I wish it had a single because I think it would do well. In terms of the Border song, it's weird when you have three vocalists and Elton John is the least talented vocalist for the song. I think Darren does a better job. I just think he has better vocal qualities in terms of the song, and he just fits that like soul gospel vibe. Chris and I have talked about it before, and I think Elton John doesn't really hit his peak vocally until about the late '80s, early '90s.
Oh, when his voice goes down to what it is today is when his voice becomes the best. Yeah.
I just don't think. I think it was maybe a little too early, and especially like when you have like Aretha Franklin, the Queen of Soul, and if you ever doubt her for that title, go listen to the song because you get that. I don't like the key change. It's kind of like a speed bump. I don't think it really adds anything. It's just kind of like I think for me as a musician is if you're gonna do the key change, I think you have to commit. It's really hard to sort of do that key change and come back in with it to sort of like add anything to it. So I disagree with you there. And then Rock and Roll Madonna, you can just add it to Bitches Back in terms of just like middle of the road Elton John songs that people love. And I just find kind of meh. Really? It's just 50s rock and roll that I honestly get better stuff from the Eagles. And I think I'm just kind of spoiled for that because I like Elton John for a couple of rock songs, but everything else, give me your ballads, give me your funk, give me your soul. Other than that, it's pretty straightforward. Thank you for all your loving. For rating wise, I would give it a rockin'. Okay. I think it's a really good song. Border song, the soundtrack version, I would say it's a download, just because there is that better version out there. And then in terms of the soundtrack, Rock and Roll Madonna, it's actually I would say a shuffle. Throw it on every now and then, but you know.
Yeah. Thing with Rock and Roll Madonna, it's interesting because that wasn't even released on the actual Elton John 1970 record. It was like a B-side. And it is the first on the Elton John's end, the first time he used fake audience noise. It was pre-Benny and the Jets. And I feel like with Rock and Roll Madonna, I actually prefer that song to Benny and the Jets. It has that kind of Chuck Berry quality to it. Yeah. A Border song is a beautiful song from all three versions are beautiful. Just the topic of that song and how it's just piano, vocal, and it's really, really kind of a really good civil rights song, especially for this climate we're in right now. Especially Aretha Franklin's version, even though I do prefer. I will say I prefer the live versions of Border song that Elton's done and currently. I feel like him doing these in that lower key and that lower register sounds a lot better. And with Thank You for All Your Loving, I felt like it was kind of forgettable. It's a good song, but I could see completely why it wasn't released as a demo to me. Musically, it just didn't really click with me, just because it just, as you said, it doesn't really fit with the rest of his catalog. And it feels very Motown too. It kind of has that Motown kind of vibe. So I would give Thank You for All Your Loving a one-time listen. Border song is a rockin', and Rock and Roll Madonna is a rockin'. I really like this version, and I like Elton's version too. Don, I'm gonna let you go. What are your thoughts on these three songs?
Well, the funny thing is, thank you for all your loving. I remember I wasn't aware of it while watching the movie, but it felt familiar. Mm-hmm. But when as I said earlier, I got kind of into Elton after Made in England, mm-hmm. and one of the things I picked up relatively early on was a 2 CD collection called Rare Masters, and it's actually on that. Oh. Along with a bunch of them, a bunch of the early songs, and so I realized that I don't know it, I couldn't sing it to you, but I've been listening to it for a decade or two, and it never really stuck with me. So yeah, I agree, it's an okay song. I almost kind of want to say I like Taron Egerton's better. but again, as I said earlier, I forget if I said this. I forget if I said it earlier, but one thing I'm kind of a stickler to when I hear the original version of something, or whatever version I hear first, and I like it. It's usually the one that I consider the best because I'm never satisfied with any other version of it. Although I think Aretha's might top it because I have not heard it, but I will go out and seek it. But yeah, I kind of like, and also it's better produced. Taryn's "Thank You for All Lovin'." Border Song, I just think it's a great song. I will definitely listen to Aretha's, but Taryn's is admirable also. I like his and Elton's. I don't know if I could pick one. I guess I would pick Elton just because it's Elton, but Taryn did a bang up job with it. And Rock Madonna, yeah, it's a rocking song, and yeah, I dig it. It's one of those ones where it's fine. I'll listen to it, but yeah, it's not one of my favorites. So I guess Thank You, I would give a download it to Thank You.
Okay.
Just for Taryn's version, definitely, yeah. Border Song, I think the same thing, and download it. And then Rock Madonna, I guess a one-time listen.
Yeah.
Maybe a shuffle it if I'm in the mood, but
yeah, you just gotta give like the filmmakers credit. They dug deep for some of these cuts.
Yeah,
like Thank You for All Your Lovin' and Rock and Roll Madonna, and they don't put in like Philadelphia Freedom or Sad Song Say So Much. It's really kind of, I like their selection of songs because they went for the mood, not necessarily the hit. So we're gonna go right into the next wave of songs, which is all right. Probably not just one of the biggest songs of Elton's, probably one of the biggest songs of all time. Your Song. Another deep cut, Amarina, of all things, Amarina. They decided to use Amarina and Crocodile Rock. All right, I'm going to go first with this one. Your Song, the version in that scene, completely encompasses the point of the film, is the relationship between Elton and Bernie. That you can have a close, intimate friendship, and it doesn't need to be sexual. That's kind of one of the underlining themes, is that you can have a strong relationship with somebody and you don't need to be with them romantically. And I think Your Song actually encompasses that completely, because when he starts singing it, you can tell just by how Bernie is looking at him that he wrote it for Elton. This song was written for Elton and his thoughts about Elton, because this is his song. This is his best friend. And I felt like how it was done in the scene was beautiful, especially with the family watching. That was just amazing. Amarina is a really interesting choice of a song and a deep cut. I forgot this song existed. I literally forgot this song existed. I went back and I listened to this, and I think it's on Tumbleweed Connection, right? I think it's Tumbleweed Connection.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah. It's very forgettable, and I still don't really remember the song too well. It's another kind of Rock and Roll Madonna kind of clone. It kind of has that same kind of quality, that kind of upbeat quality, and I think it does it a little bit inferior. I do like Elton John's version. I like Taryn's version, but I just find it very forgettable. And this is the problem I have with the movie, is that being an Elton John fan, I knew in 1971 Crocodile Rock wasn't written.
Right.
This song, if this was actually going to be in a biopic, this song wouldn't have been Crocodile Rock. This song was Burn Down the Mission. Because when he would end his songs, it sets in 1971, he would end it with Burn Down the Mission. And you can look at all these newspaper clippings. It was Burn Down the Mission that brought down the house. And that is why he does Burn Down the Mission at every single show, is because this is the song that broke him in America. And the fact that they replaced Burn Down the Mission with Crocodile Rock has bothered me about this film, because I wish that this could have been the moment where they could have really done something awesome with Burn Down the Mission. They kind of made it kind of, I don't know, very cookie cutter with the whole people floating around and it being Crocodile Rock. You could put Crocodile Rock anywhere. This just didn't seem right to me. But of course, I might just, you guys might have differing opinions. But for Your Song, it's rocking, easy, hard rocking. Amarina is a skip it. I just don't really care for the song, and I think it's forgettable. And Crocodile Rock is a skip it. I didn't like the scene. I don't like the arrangement, and I don't even like Crocodile Rock to begin with. It's my version of We Didn't Start the Fire for Billy. I don't like Crocodile Rock, so I just gave it a skip it. I didn't like the scene. I wish it was Burn Down the Mission. Don, do you agree with anything I said?
For the most part, I think I do.
Yeah.
The refresh my memory. The Crocodile Rock scene.
It's
Which-
in the
that
Troubadour.
wasn't-
It's in the Troubadour. Yeah.
That's the one where everyone's floating. I thought that wasn't the song Rocketman.
No,
No.
that's in the trailer where everybody's floating.
Okay.
But yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So yeah, your song. I agree with you with what you said about that. Yeah. It's one of the few that I think sits okay with me. About used in the way that they, give it a meaning in the story rather than just a song that has a meaning of why it was written. Yeah, Amarina, kind of the same thing.
It's a weird selection.
I think I skip it when it comes up on my Elton John. When I put the whole catalog on my phone and just let it play. If it plays, I probably wouldn't realize it because I'm busy doing something. And Crocodile Rock, yeah, I mean, I like the original. I've performed the original in a show, and I had fun doing it. But yeah, I liked. I didn't realize that was that scene. Yeah, I like again visually the scene was striking, but it's just so not. I guess I prefer some things that are like realistic, and even if you're going conceptually for how it felt, either for Elton or the crowd at that first show, seeing someone who clearly had great songs and great talent, even if it was that moving for you, that it felt like I could picture people saying, "Oh, it felt like I was floating and time stopped and this," and I get it, but I wasn't prepared to watch a movie like that. So although visually it was striking, it doesn't make the song any better. And if we're dealing with specifically the song, yeah, I just prefer the original. Give me Elton's original.
Cool. What do you give him?
So your song, I would give. Can you put up the rating
again?
system again?
You got it.
All right, your song, I would give a download. Amarina, skip it, and Crocodile Rock, I would do a one-time listen for Crocodile Rock.
Cool. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Sorry, I was so kind of like adamant on that. It took me out of it when Crocodile Rock is being performed in 1971. It's just weird. Peter, what are your thoughts on these three songs?
Well, your song, Chris, you kind of said it great when, like, in the scene, this works so well for this movie. Like, having your song here and mean what it means, it really is used perfectly. Taron Egerton, he has a voice that I kind of like to describe how Andy Bernard describes a Southern accent in The Office. And it's like, it just has to flow out of your mouth, kind of like molasses. And I kind of feel like that's how Taron sings. It just kind of flows out of his mouth, and it's got that kind of, it's got that quality to it. And in this song, it works really well. I don't think there's that, when you just listen to the soundtrack itself, there's not that same kind of raw emotion that you feel when you listen to Elton John sing it. Like, there's that, like, just so simplistic love that you feel from Elton John when he sings it. And I didn't quite feel it when Taron was singing it, like, in the soundtrack. In the movie, you feel it because of the visuals, but the soundtrack itself it didn't quite sell me as much. But I mean, the original is, it's flawless. Like, you can't beat that song when Elton does it. Like, it's terrific. With Amarina, I had never heard this song. There are some albums that, especially his later career, I am not as familiar with it, which now that you guys have said some praise for it, I need to go and listen to all of it.
Yeah.
But Tumbleweed Connection is one of those that I haven't really listened to a lot. And so this song, when I heard it, I was like, man, this is kind of cool. It's that kind of rock country hybrid that shows up in a lot of Elton's repertoire. And I really liked the movie version. It just kind of, it has a saunter to it almost. And it has a really full, rich sound. And I like how Taron sings it. The original Elton John song is fine. It's not great, but it's Elton John, so it's good. With Crocodile Rock, excuse me. I was the exact same way that you were, Chris, because I knew that this was from 1973. Don't Shoot, I'm Only the Piano Player.
Great album.
Yeah, that's my favorite album personally.
Have Mercy on the Criminals, great.
Yeah, exactly. I love that album, and I was like, wait, this is not, and it works because of how the musical is framed, where it's how the song fits into the moment, not necessarily in the timeline. But I felt like how Chris felt like Crocodile Rock could be anywhere, and that it really didn't make sense to have it here necessarily. I was kind of I was a little let down that this was the song that they chose for the Troubadour scene. And I mean, for the original, this was the first Elton John song I ever heard. I heard it in Bob the Builder Christmas special. The entire thing leads up to an Elton John concert at the end. And I didn't know that I was Elton John when I was 5, but I loved it. And then when I heard it on the radio, like in 7th grade, before I loved Elton John, I was like, wait, that's the one from the Bob the Builder Christmas special. And I was like, that's Elton John. That's who that is. And so and that was the moment that I was like, I need to check this guy out. And ever since then, I've loved him. And so for me, this will always be a top 10 Elton John song just because of my nostalgia for it. Like, I know that people don't like it, like you, Chris, and Elton John.
Fine. That's valid, though. That's a valid reason. You saw it in Bob the Builder.
Right, exactly. It's, but I mean, Elton doesn't like performing it. He said that, he doesn't care to perform it, and I understand that. Like, sometimes
he didn't perform it for like 13 years.
Right.
He doesn't, even when he performs it, he throws most of it to the crowd, especially
And
he doesn't sing half of it. He doesn't have to.
And
I just want to throw in that I feel like the whole, like, I didn't even make that connection that this song wasn't even around when he played the Troubadour. But if you're gonna, if they're gonna do a movie like this where the music isn't a visceral thing, the music is part of the plot, then it's really not a terrible thing to do that, because he could play anything on that stage, and it's a jukebox musical or fantasy or like everything. It's like saying that, it's like I said, I'll be honest with you, it's like I said, like, that I didn't like how people floated. You know what I mean? Like,
well, yeah, it also makes sense because, yeah.
Like, I agree that it's silly to use a song that wasn't even written yet at that concert when he played that concert. But in the end, to me, it's also silly to have people busting out into dance numbers in the neighborhood Main Street. You know what I mean? So
and the family singing "I Want Love" in 1960 in like the 1930s, when it was released in 2002.
The difference is the Troubadour concert is a historical event.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
But it's kind of like, picking low hanging fruit. As far as like, well, he didn't play it, then it shouldn't. And I agree, it shouldn't have been there. But there's a lot of things. Yeah. There's a lot of things in the movie that are fantastical, fantasy. You know what I mean? So it kind of fits in the MO of making the movie.
It does, and it's a good crowd pleaser because people would know that and not burn down the mission.
Right.
Right. I don't know if anybody on call knows that song, but I know.
I've not. But I think the reason that I dislike it so much isn't necessarily the fact that it played and it wasn't made until 1973. It's just that it could have been a different song and it could have had more meaning to it. Like I love this song, but for me, it was like, okay, we're playing Crocodile Rock right now. Like it didn't have any additional value besides the fact that it was a crowd pleaser rocking song.
Did you rate it yet, Peter?
Yeah, for ratings, your song, the soundtrack, I like it. It has kind of a produced feel. It doesn't quite strike the emotional chord that I feel when the original plays. So I would give it a shuffle. For Amarina, I would give it a rocking, just because I really like the version, and that was how I was introduced to the song.
Interesting.
And then for Crocodile Rock, I would give it a one-time listen, just because the first like minute or so is really good, but then once all the la la la's start, I can't listen to it at that point.
Loses the momentum. Yeah.
It just it dies right there in the soundtrack version. But yeah.
All right, Brooklyn. I know that we kind of dominated the conversation, but let's
Excited to hear your thoughts.
Wow, you guys are not gonna like what I have to say. So,
No.
so the soundtrack version of your song, I agree with you, Chris and Peter, in terms of the movie, how it fits really well. But on the soundtrack version, there's one major complaint that I have with this. Your song works really well because musically, how it's arranged very minimally. It doesn't really take anything up. And I think if you were to blanket concept, this whole Rocketman soundtrack, it takes a lot of Elton John songs and it just sort of adds more layers to it. And I think with your song in particular, it just adds too much, and it sort of overwhelms Terrence's voice. And I think they do a much better job of that in the original. And I think that song in particular, you really need to let the lead singer shine. In terms of Amarina, it's just another. I actually get really annoyed about it because it's like in the later part of the chorus. There is a setup that is very reminiscent of Border Song. So every time that I get to that part, I'm like, oh, we're listening to the Border Song. No, we're not. We're listening. It just sort of like it goes back down. So it's kind of a tease. Like I just kind of want to hear that like loud, uplifting part of Border Song. So I think in terms of that for Amarina, I just kind of get annoyed every time I hear it. Crocodile Rock, though, I understand why for two reasons. One, you have to pander to your casual audience. I think for our demographic in particular, like the 20-year-olds, Crocodile Rock was definitely like one of the first Elton John songs that I heard. So there is that like instant like attachment to the nostalgia, similar to what Peter was saying. So I get that, and especially like if you don't put Crocodile Rock in the soundtrack, people are going to be mad. I think Philadelphia Freedom was like probably the biggest one that they left off of it, and I think even that one is like. It sucks, but it's fine. But I think Crocodile Rock is just too big to be left off. I think this works though because you look at the scene, but you look at the scene beforehand. Terren has a panic attack before, goes in the stall, doesn't want to play, and I think that scene in particular encapsulates what he is going through, especially as a performer. You know, he has nerves, he has slowed down. I think it really speaks to the overall message of the movie because when that song starts, he has sort of low confidence. He sort of stutters through the song, but then when he gets to Old Blue Chevy and A Place of My Own, that's when it really kicks in. And then when it gets to that La 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 part, I like how because they essentially because that song is meant to be kind of trippy, in a way, especially in that part. And they're like, why don't we take that trippy concept and dial it up to 11? So they have the spacey and sort of thing. And then for me, it was like when everybody sort of lifted up, then it was like, all right, I think this is a moment for Terren where it's like he has confidence in himself and he knows that people are attaching to sort of like his brand or whatever. So I think if I was to sort of get it into the mind of Dexter Fletcher and to like where that scene sort of makes sense, I think that would be why. But yeah, the soundtrack version of your song, if we're going rating wise, I would give it a download. I think the original is far superior. Amarina is a skip it. You're not missing much. You're just going to want to listen to better Elton John. And then Crocodile Rock, I will give it a rocking. I think the studio version is just as good as the OG.
It's all good, guys. That was a lot of discussion for that. Now the next, go for it.
One thing, just I really agree with Brooklyn in saying like how the movie kind of turns more simplistic Elton John songs into this like huge, like layered thing, and I kind of put that it felt produced. You know, it felt very produced, and I didn't like that about the soundtrack. But
there's a couple songs that are a little too overproduced like that. Yeah, I kind of agree. I really think with your song they shouldn't have touched it, just because it's considered one of the greatest songs ever written. They probably shouldn't even have touched it and just made it like verbatim, word for word, and arranged just the same way. But we're gonna go right into Tiny Dancer, Take Me to the Pilot, and Hercules. I'm gonna go with Don. What are your thoughts on the versions of these three songs in the actual film and the soundtrack?
As much as I like Tiny Dancer, like in general, it's really long.
Yeah.
And that I think that's just a turn off. Just hearing, I mean, again, it's like anything else. I keep hearing "Hold Me Closer," Tony Danza at times. You know, like it's just not one that I look forward to hearing in any. And it's not a bad song. I want to reiterate, it's not a bad song at all. I just
a bit schlocky.
not a fan of it. Yeah,
Yeah,
just not a fan.
yeah, yeah. I think with Tiny Dancer, you get that kind of sounds like your song at the beginning too, kind of the arrangement that's on the soundtrack.
Yeah, it's similar. Yeah.
Yeah.
I liked Taron's version of "Take Me to the Pilot."
Yeah,
It's one of the few that I thought he did really, really well. But it doesn't divert much.
Nope.
If memory serves, from the original, like it
doesn't at all.
But yeah, but maybe that's what I'm looking for. I don't know. So I do like his version of it. Hercules, I'll be honest, I don't remember it from the soundtrack.
When does Hercules happen? Yeah, you can listen to Hercules if you want to listen to it.
Yeah.
When does Hercules happen in the soundtrack?
I was just looking at that today and I just forgot it. Like I was.
Yeah, sometimes this happens, guys. Brooklyn, do you remember when Hercules happens?
Hercules, it's
like a montage, right?
Yeah, it's a montage. So So if we're going, take to the pilot is essentially their love scene. And then when you go into, so the next song after Hercules would be "Don't Go Breaking My Heart" is whenever like they first sort of is like because he comes in or whatever. He's like, all right, we have 5 minutes or whatever. So I think it's sort of a transition into like their process, and I think because I think the newspaper article comes up and how he does really well.
Yeah, and then it's in this one thing it says Hercules / Don't Go Breaking My Heart because it's kind of it transitions to then.
So I think we all are gonna rate this like a one-time list. All right. So are you listening to it now? Yeah.
I'm just briefly looking at where it is. Yeah, it's a montage. It's not even. Yeah. It's all like news clippings and
It's very brief. It's very forgettable.
Oh, because it has the boot scene as well. Whenever he has the winged boots, and they're like, you can't play a piano with those, and then it has the clip of him with the foot on the piano.
Yeah. All right. So I'd give Tiny Dancer. Let me look at the things. Tiny Dancer. I'm not a fan of just the song in general, so I'll give it a one-time listen. It's not a terrible song, but I wouldn't skip it until about halfway through the song. Then I would skip the second half. And not that it's any worse. It's so long at that point. Although I guess the soundtrack isn't quite as long. But I'm just it's just not my thing. Pilot, I would give I'd give a rockin' to it. I think he does a bang-up job with it. And again, maybe I'm looking for as close to the original as possible. I mean, that's certainly a thing. And Pilot comes close. So I'd give that a rockin'. Hercules, it's I mean, I like the song. Just listening briefly to it right now again, he does a fine job with it. But the way it's not really utilized in it. So other than kind of filler. So I'd say stick with Elton's version. That's what I would say. So I would do. No, I wouldn't skip it because it's good. It's just again one-time listen.
Okay, cool. For me, I would actually give Hercules a one-time listen too. It is completely. It serves its purpose, but it is very forgettable. Pilot. Yeah. I mean, I actually am with Don. It is a carbon copy, pretty much of the original, but at the same time, how do you overproduce Taking Me to the Pilot? It's already a jam. It is a bluesy jam with a heavy piano. It's basically essentially like kind of to a less extent Elton Zanzibar. It kind of has that kind of quality to where you could just like riff on it and just it has that energy. So I would give Take Me to the Pilot a rockin'. And Tiny Dancer, I would give a skip it. I never liked Tiny Dancer to begin with. And this arrangement is kind of a little bit schlocky too. And it kind of has the Your Song kind of chords at the beginning. And it just doesn't do anything for me. It doesn't differentiate itself. And it just kind of, it's there. And I just think Tiny Dancer just plods a little bit. But I'm going to go down to Brooklyn. Brooklyn, do you have any differing opinions on these three songs?
Take Me to the Pilot, somewhat. Tiny Dancer, I sort of have a concept of it if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You know, it's a great song. The length honestly doesn't bother me. For me personally, probably the longer the song is, the more that I tend to gravitate toward it more. but I forget if, in terms of taking to the pilot, I forget if it was in like the storyboard process or an editing process. But I was watching one of the interviews, and Dexter Fletcher had mentioned that his editor at some point was, because it wasn't even his idea, it was the editor's idea to throw on Take Me to the Pilot as that love scene or whatever. And that's sort of set for how the song was going to be. And I think this is one of the greater examples of how that overproducing really works, because I think there's really two different tones that you get from the studio version and the original one. The original one, it's not as staccato, I guess, or there isn't as much of like a boldness or a force in this. Whereas with Take Me to the Pilot, you really get that power and that rawness that you really need for that scene, especially like what Taron is going through as a character in that moment. But yeah, I think it's really good, better than the original. And then I'll echo everybody else, like I said, with Hercules. I kind of forgot it was on the soundtrack. It's here and kind of flash in the pan. So I wouldn't even for ratings, I wouldn't even skip it. I would just say intentionally forget about it, because that's what you're going to do. But yeah, Tiny Dancer is still gonna be a rockin'. It ain't broke, don't fix it. Take Me to the Pilot. I would even I noticed I would give it a hard rockin', a 6 out of 5 even. Yeah. And then Hercules, it's a 1.5, I guess, to intentionally forget about it.
Yeah, I should add that rating. Peter, your thoughts? Do you agree with anything?
I agree that the Tiny Dancers, the arrangement of it, it's a little over sappy kind of. Cool. But I think the fact that this song is as recognized and as famous as it is kind of amazing, because the chorus and the title, they don't even drop until 2 minutes into the song, which personally I love, because it doesn't rely on the foundations of a lot of musical principles in a lot of ways, where it's like, all right, we're gonna go for a minute and then the chorus is gonna drop, or whatever, and it takes a while and it kind of draws you into it, and then it just it keeps on going. And I like that a lot about the song, the original.
It's not formulaic. It's great.
Right, yeah, it kind of differs a little bit from it. And Taron is fine in this. I think it works pretty well in the movie. This is showing when Bernie is going off with some girl after the troubadour scene. And it works, it works fine. It does a good job for what the movie wants it to do. I would probably say for Tiny Dancer, I'd say one-time listen for that. And then Take Me to the Pilot. I mean, it's a great song, great original song. I agree that it kind of just sticks to what it is. And it's one of my favorites from his first album. And it's a good song. It's a great song. And then for Hercules, I actually really love this song. I don't know why, but something about it I really like.
Interesting.
And I don't think the studio version lives up to it. It's fine. Taron's voice doesn't really work for it. The molasses feel that I kind of coined to Taron's voice, it doesn't work for it. Elton's voice is a little bit more raw in places, and I think it works a lot better for this style. Taron's voice does not do that as well.
So what do you give Pilot and Hercules?
Pilot, I would give a download, and Hercules, I would say shuffle, just because it sticks close enough to the original that I still enjoy it. But, I wouldn't go beyond randomly having Spotify play it for me.
It's all good. Wave 5 includes Don't Go Breaking My Heart, Honky Cat, and Pinball Wizard. All right. Who didn't I start? You know what, Peter? I'm just going to go right back to you. Don't Go Breaking My Heart, Honky Cat, Pinball. What are your thoughts on these three?
All right. Don't Go Breaking My Heart. It's mixed in with Hercules in the montage there, kind of, and it's fine. It's a great song and I love it. If you're going to do a duet, if someone wants to do a duet with me, this will be my go-to. This and Love is an Open Door from Frozen. Those are my two go-to duet songs. I love both of them. I think it works fine for what the film wants it to do. For Honky Cat, I love the song, the original song. It's unique in Elton's repertoire, and I think that the fact that it's shorter in the soundtrack version helps it out a lot, because if it was the full thing, I would probably say skip it, just because it's, Taryn's voice doesn't lend itself to much to this song as much. So yeah, I would say I would still probably say skip it on Honky Cat, but I really love the original, and the sax in the original is just
that sax solo, yeah,
it really makes the song for me. Like whenever I'm listening to it, I'm listening for that sax solo,
and they cut it out. It's great.
Mm-hmm. And then we're doing Pinball Wizard, right?
Yep.
I really like what they do with this. I like the electric piano they add into it, and I actually kind of like the extra vocal backings to it. And it's a terrific classic rock style to it. And so for Don't Go Breaking My Heart, I would give it a one-time listen. And for Pinball Wizard, I would give it a rocking.
Yeah, I found Pinball Wizard to be a very, very interesting choice because this is a cover of a Who song that Elton did, and they're putting it into Rocketman, and I feel like this is still a Who song in Rocketman, and I feel like even though it's a huge hit for Elton's, and his version is a huge hit, and most people identify his version as the superior, I feel like this was a very, very odd choice of a song to put here. I don't know what song would have been better to put here. Maybe there could have been anything, maybe Gray Seal, but it just feels like this song was kind of just put there because of clout and not really put there because it was necessary. I do like the arrangement of it and Taryn's arrangement of it, like you said, Peter. I just feel like it doesn't fit in the show just because it's a Who song at the end of the day, and it just kind of takes me out of it. Although I do like it on the soundtrack, it just doesn't mesh with everything, so I would say shuffle it. It's good in a shuffle, but other than that, it doesn't really fit my thing. Honky Cat, this is also an interesting choice because it's a modest deep cut. It's not a song many people know, though it was a hit. It's the title track of Honky Chateau, but I just feel like Honky Cat, as you said, I prefer the sax solo. I prefer Elton's version, and this version, since it's cut down on the soundtrack, we're not judging the extended version. To just cut down here on the soundtrack, it just doesn't give you anything more. It doesn't give you anything more that Elton's version gave you. So what's the point of it? I would say skip it. And then Don't Go Breaking My Heart. This is probably the weakest wave we've had so far, in my opinion. Don't Go Breaking My Heart is a horrible song, in my opinion. I never liked Don't Go Breaking My Heart. And this version, though, I do prefer to Elton and Kiki's version. I think this has a little bit more energy and a little bit more pizzazz. And I like how it's shorter because that song goes on forever and it's a nightmare. But this version is a great interlude, and it's great in the credits into I'm Gonna Love Me Again. So I feel like Don't Go Breaking My Heart does have some value to it. I would give it a shuffle it, but overall it's shuffle it, and skip it. So I just feel like it's not a good wave, in my opinion. Brooklyn, what are your thoughts on these three? And I know you have a lot of thoughts on Honky Cat.
Yeah, Don't Go Breaking My Heart. I think it's said many a time here. It was only in the movie for maybe 30 seconds. The studio version doesn't really do it justice. I disagree with Chris. I think the Elton John Kikidi version is far superior, and it is one of the better ones. Yeah, like you mentioned before, Honky Cat, they took out a big section of this song, which would have really changed it. It would have made it like almost like an intermission or like a halfway point.
How so? Describe it.
How so? They have this big dance number, and they really change up the structural integrity of what Honky Cat is. And I agree with you, Chris, and how you say it doesn't really offer up anything different. And I think one of the backbone of that song is the rhythm section, because it really gives it sort of that bounce and that feel. Like the bass and the drums really do a lot of the heavy lifting, and that isn't really as present. It kind of goes for more of the flair, more of the piano, more of the horns, and even in the studio version in particular, they mess up some things tempo wise, and unless you're doing that like intentionally, like it just feels like it was just like a sort of like a human error sort of drag, and it just never got noticed in the editing process. That could have been an easy fix. But then Pinball Wizard. It doesn't really bother me as much as consider like it's sort of an off-brand fit. The more that I think about it, the more that it makes sense, given the context of the movie. Because you look at the song after it, and that's Rocketman, and that would be like sort of his suicide. His attempted suicide scene. And then Honky Cat before is really meant to be the peak of Taryn and Richard's relationship, and then from there, that's when it starts to go down. And I think Pinball Wizard is supposed to really encapsulate as best as possible. Sort of that like that nonsense, not the nonsense lifestyle, but sort of that crazy back and forth of just like, tour here, tour there, concert there, party here. I think it did a really good job of that, and I think Taron Egerton has a voice that's kind of similar to Roger Daltrey. So I think if Pinball Wizard would be a safe choice because it does have sort of that draw, and he has similar characteristics in that way. So I think it's fine. In terms of ratings, Don't Break My Heart, again, skip it. There's a much superior version of the original. Honky Cat, I would actually probably give it a one-time listen, and that's a low rating, but I just think that the original is a much better one. And then Pinball Wizard, I actually hated this whenever I first listened to it, but studio version, it's a download. Listen to it every now and then.
Okay. Don, we've been taking over the conversation a lot. What are your thoughts on these three songs?
Don't Go Breaking My Heart it's a fine enough song. It's not the greatest song ever, but it's a fun duet, easy for karaoke. I actually got my ex-wife to do it, who doesn't sing at all. We did it like Great Adventure or whatever in those recording booth things.
Oh,
so it's an easy enough song to do. Everyone kind of, everyone who likes it just kind of likes it. I don't think anyone thinks it's that much of it, but it's a throwaway in the movie. It's just part of the montage. I would skip it. Just hear the original. I don't think they did anything that amazing with it anyway, the few seconds that it was on.
I was surprised, yeah. It's more for the credits. They recredited it for the credits.
Oh, so
yeah.
I mean, it was a hit. It's extremely well known. So, it's not...
It's the biggest hit, yeah.
Yeah. So I would say skip it for that. Honky Cat, I never disliked the song, but it grew on me live when Elton performs it live.
With the banjo, yeah.
Yeah, it's just that he just especially when you guys mentioned the drums and the brass and everything, it adds so much to it. So to take that out and just kind of water it down, and I don't know, it just doesn't. I would skip Honky Cat and find a live clip of it on YouTube. Yeah. Or just listen to Elton's original. That's fine too. But I just think live has just an extra kind of punch to it, Pinball Wizard, I like it. I like Elton's more than the Who. I'm not a huge Who fan. I finally saw them live this past summer. They're okay. Crucified me. But yeah, I'm with Brooklyn in what he was saying as far as the role that it serves and how it fits there. But I think I prefer Elton's original, so I would say skip Don't Go Breaking My Heart. One-time listen Honky Cat, and maybe shuffle it for Pinball Wizard.
Yeah, this wave wasn't too strong, guys. So we're going to get right into the next wave, which is Rocketman, Benny and the Jets, and Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me. I'm sorry, that acronym looks like it says DLTS Gloom. I couldn't figure out how to shorten Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me. Speaking of which, Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me kind of got neutered in this soundtrack. It is. I'm comparing it to the George Michael Elton John version.
Yeah.
And that's a duet, and that is and you can't. And what they did to the song, especially with the chorus, lost a lot of energy and momentum. Benny and the Jets, I'll be honest, you can crucify me as an Elton fan, but I don't like Benny and the Jets as a song. I think it plods on way too long. And I really like the soundtrack version here, where it actually shortens it up into a digestible format, gives you the best parts of Benny and the Jets, and is a good interlude as it's supposed to be in the actual film. So I think Benny and the Jets is amazing. So Don't Let the Sun is a skip it. Benny is a rock, and I really like the version of Benny here, and I really prefer it to Elton's, because Elton's, as I said, kind of plods along. And Rocketman, even though it's the title song of the movie, and I love the introduction, I actually love the arrangement of Rocketman here, Where it even is superior is the visuals of this scene in the actual film itself. So while the visuals are phenomenal, you really need the visuals with this song in particular, just because you just need to see it on screen. And I don't think it translates that well to the soundtrack, but it's still phenomenal. And I prefer this to the original as well. I feel like Rocketman is also better live. So, because Rocketman is like a 15-minute song live. Yeah, I looked that up. It's like Levon. We're going to get to Levon later, but Rocketman is amazing. So, it's rocking for Rocketman, rocking for Benny, and then a skip it for Don't Let the Sun. I'm going to let these guys go for it, though. Brooklyn, what are your thoughts on these 3 songs? This is a good wave.
Yeah, this is a really good wave. In terms of like the soundtrack version for Rocketman, doesn't really do a whole lot more. I actually like what they do at the beginning of towards the beginning of the movie, because you have like the youngest version of Elton John. He has the conductor's baton. I think with these movies in particular, in terms of like where music is really a character, I'm glad that they made the choice to really sort of personify that and have the band to sort of be in there, because they are really sort of as much of they're as much of important to the movie as it is like sort of like the cast and everybody else. So it's good to see them like really sort of have their moment to shine, because they do a really good job, and I think those people are often overlooked on these types of soundtracks. Benny and the Jets is actually my favorite version of the soundtrack version on the album. I think it's a really good job of just, and especially in the movie, they play the it's like the Queen Victoria concert or whatever. He had this on his like probably 2-week bender or whatever, done all the drugs, all the alcohol in the world, just sort of through it. And then he takes out all that anger into that, and then that whole thing after. I think it's a really interesting way to sort of cover his sex addiction, because they don't really like. They kind of talk about it briefly in the dinner scene, but they don't really like. And I think that's a good way to sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Montage it, I guess would be the good way. It's trippy enough to sort of take you out of it and really like kind of it's almost like a palate cleanser pretty well, because everything else is sort of fantastical and sort of whimsical before that. And then Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me. This is actually one of the songs that Elton had heard Taron perform before he actually got cast for the role, and Elton had his own seal of approval on the song. I do like that sort of raw, simplistic approach to the start of it, where it's only one. Or it's only the one note. It's only the G that's played with the chorus. This is where the placement of it has a problem with me, because it doesn't really make much sense in terms of the actual story. It's kind of like we need to talk about it because it did happen, but it happened earlier in his career, and it doesn't really fit the overall character arc. But yeah, and then even that version that you had on the playlist of George Michael and Elton John, I actually like the version that's just Elton John, because
Caribou, yeah, that's great.
Because my problem with it is that they're almost trying to one up one another, and I'm one of the people that I would even say George Michael is a better vocalist than Elton John.
100%.
Yeah, I would say it's really good, and it's just. I think this is both where their star power. They're sort of like trying to clash heads, constantly trying to one up one another. Hitting these vocal sort of flares. And I think if one person just really sort of took the role of like the beta or like the sort of the harmony kind of guy, I think then it would have worked. But I think that it's just there's just too much going on. Somebody needs to balance and sort of dial things back. Rating wise, let's see here. Rocketman, I would say it's a download, solid listen. Benny and the Jets, I would actually put it at a rocking. And then Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me, I would also put it at a download. It's not the worst version, but yeah, it's solid.
Oh, okay. Don, your thoughts?
Just when it comes to Don't Let the Sun. I disagree as far as Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me with Brooklyn. I think. I didn't really read about that specific show, or if there were multiple times where Elton came on stage for George Michael at a show or whatever. But I love the harmony at the end. I think it's I think it's something actually missing from the original version. Not that I knew it at the time, but now that I'm thinking, I might have gotten the intro, and this might fall down to me being biased to the first thing I hear. But that might have been the first time I heard the song, because it wasn't really a prominent song in my life up to that point, because the Elton John stuff I knew was more Made in England on. So the original
that was recorded during Made in England's like tour. Or
well,
whatever.
the live one, not the original.
Yeah, no, yeah, I know the original was Caribou. Yeah, but I mean the live version that everybody knows. Yeah,
right. The original one, though, I may not have heard it. I may have. I don't recall. But I've loved that Elton John, George Michael version since day one. And listening to it, I still love the original as well. But that harmony is what's missing. So to me, the one in the movie doesn't really, like, it's okay. He has a fine voice. George Michael is definitely a way better vocalist. Even at his peak, even at Elton John's peak, I think George Michael has a much more pleasing voice. But Elton has, I think he can do rockin' more. I mean, I love Faith and all the George Michael song, but Elton's just way more, versatile than I found George Michael to be. Although I haven't really explored his catalog, so I can't speak too much on that. But so Rocketman, I'd give it a download, somewhere, a shuffle or download, depending on my mood. Okay. Benny and the Jets. Benny and the Jets for me goes back to Honky Cat. I much prefer it live. Much more prefer it live.
Especially when Billy does it with him.
Say it again.
Especially when Billy does it with him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just talking. I only saw them. I mean, I've seen and heard audio, but I only saw them together, I think, once. But just Elton in general live with Benny and Honky Cat, I think those two just get brought up to a different level. And even now, even though he's lowered all the keys, I mean, he doesn't sing what he used to sing.
That's fine.
But there's just an energy to Benny and the Jets and Honky Cat when he plays it that I think don't exist on a recording. To me, Benny gets I'll be honest, it's tough to skip anything because it's Elton music. I mean, it would have to be a terrible version, for me at least. So the lowest I'll most likely go, other than I think I skipped Go Go Breaking My Heart before. But this would be a one-time listen for Benny. And Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me. Yeah, I guess it's a one-time listen too. But I would listen to that, and then I'd go listen to the George Michael Elton John version.
Oh yeah, total. Peter, your thoughts? Any agreements? Any disagreements?
I don't remember who said it, but somebody talked about the visuals and how it really adds so much to Rocketman. Yeah. And I think this is the peak of like adding visuals with the music in this movie. I really love the callback to the orchestra scene when he was little and waving and conducting around in his bedroom. And I relate to that a lot. You could find me conducting most things in my basement a lot. I love doing that. But I love the callback to that. And I think that this version is really good, but it does lose a little bit without the visuals. And it's a great song to begin with, and I think they do it justice in this soundtrack. Benny and the Jets. This is probably my second favorite Elton John song. I love it. Like whenever I hear the audience applause, like if I have my Elton John playlist on shuffle and I hear that, I just get happy. Like I just instantly love it because you just know that you're gonna get this classic mid-tempo rock song, and like I don't think the mid-tempo rock classics get enough love, and I think this is like the top as you can get in that. But I do think that they speed it up a little bit more in the studio version here in the soundtrack, and I like that. I like the mid-tempo better, obviously, but I think it does fit the movie a little bit better. and I like the accelerando at the end where it just keeps getting a little bit faster and faster. I do like that little spin to it, and I would say that it does the song justice, but it's not as good as the original. And then Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me. I don't really care for this one as in the studio version or the soundtrack version. I don't think you can compare duets to Elton John and George Michael. Like that duet version is perfect for me, and I think them trying to replicate that while it fits in the movie, it doesn't live up to it.
Mm-hmm.
And so for ratings for Rocketman, I would say it's a download. Benny and the Jets, it's a rocking. And Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me, it's a one-time listen. I do like the simplicity at the beginning of it.
With just the G chords. It's
yeah,
great.
with the G, I do like that. But then when the duet comes in, I would probably skip it after that.
All right, guys. The final wave before we get to the Oscar winner song is Sorry Seems to Be the Hardest Word, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, and I'm Still Standing. These versions are very, very interesting. I think Sorry seems to be the hardest word. The magic of that song and Ellen's original song is how simple it is. And I feel like the version on this soundtrack takes all of that away. And although I love Taryn's vocals, it's a little too overproduced. Goodbye Yellow Brick Road is the same exact situation. It's just so iconic that when you hear Jamie Bell's version and then it's mixed with Elton's version with the whole fallout and then and him just quitting and leaving MSG, I just feel like Goodbye Yellow Brick Road is a great opener. The chords that it was at the beginning was a good foreshadowing to this scene, and the arrangement is very interesting. I don't think I like it as much as Elton's version, but it's not bad. So, and it's a very, very interesting arrangement for such an iconic song. And it just gives it a very trailer chord kind of vibe. Like this was made to be put in a trailer. And then I'm Still Standing. If you're a Meatloaf fan, he's in some of his live versions, like there's a song called All Revved Up with No Place to Go. He starts off with the live, he would start off the song with a vamp of the first verse, which is soft. And then it goes right into the song itself, which is at a high speed. And it does the same thing that they did here with I'm Still Standing. They start with that soft first verse, and then they kind of go right into the quickness of the act. And I really dig that. I really dig how they did that. And I think it worked really well for I'm Still Standing as a finale song. Because as a finale, you need to just kick it up a notch. You just need to kick it up a notch. So I feel like I'm Still Standing really leaves you off really, really well. So I'm Still Standing is a rockin'. Goodbye Yellow Brick Road is a download. And Sorry seems to be the hardest word. It's probably going to be a one-time listen just because of the arrangement of it, in my opinion. Brooklyn, what are your thoughts on these three?
All right. Well, we disagree once again.
All right.
I like the way that they adapted Sorry Seems to Be the Hardest Word into the musical. I'm not a fan of the original version.
All right.
I think there's a much better version of that song that actually features Elton John.
Is it the Boys to Men or whatever?
It's Blue.
Blue.
Because I truly believe that Sorry Seems to Be the Hardest Word is meant to be an R&B song. And that original version in particular, I think the way that they were trying to arrange it, it was supposed to be another like Candle in the Wind sort of thing, where it was like trying to be like this really ballady sort of story. But the way that the lyrics fit, I think this is a rare mismatch in terms of Freddie Copeland's lyrics and Elton John's musical arrangement. This doesn't quite fit for me, and I think it was done better later. Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, again, Donna mentioned it earlier that they have this as almost like a motif in the movie, and you hear it a couple times before. So for me, that was like, all right, what are they gonna do with this to sort of change this, like to sort of have it be their own? And I like that interpretation. In the original version of Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, it resolves. And what I mean by resolve, well, you guys would pretty well know. It goes to the root chord, pretty simple. And I believe it's an F. And they play F pretty early on to sort of like have have it be like that happy sort of undertone, but they don't resolve it. They don't resolve the song in the soundtrack version until the chorus. So I like how they keep it in that sort of minor, sort of dark vibe to really sort of emphasize Jamie Bell's frustration in that scene. I like the mix of it. I think it plays well again with the movie. And then I'm Still Standing is I didn't care about the song before the movie, and now after the movie, it did its job, made me care about the song, because I think the original is just fine at best. But this is another example of where overproducing really helped it out. Sorry seems to be, so in terms of rankings, sorry seems to be the hardest word. I would give it a one-time listen, but again, because there are better versions out there, and you only need it for the movie aspect. Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, I would put it as a download. I think it's better than everyone thinks it is, and I like the sort of the risks that it takes musically. And then I'm Still Standing is a rockin'. It's a great way to close out the movie.
Yeah, they made I'm Still Standing, which the original version is cookie cutter. It is one of the most boring Elton John songs, in my opinion. I don't understand how it was a hit. It just feels like so generic and so like, okay, I'm Still Standing, just goes in and out, and just there's no substance to it. They actually put substance to this and made it a good finale song, which I just feel like they went above and beyond for a song that really had not a lot going for it. Peter, what are your thoughts?
On Sorry seems to be the hardest word. I never quite. I've always felt a little tension with this song. And Brooklyn, you saying how it's kind of a mismatch between like lyrics and stuff and Elton's style. And now that you say that, that makes a lot of sense for me. I still really like the song, but whenever I hear it, there's a little bit of like, I don't know, there's something off about this, the original. And so I still really love the song, but Brooklyn, what you said definitely rings true for me. And I think that it really isn't executed well. I like it until the backing voices come in and kind of just overtake the song, and then it feels kind of overproduced a little bit. And I don't think it serves the song as well. But with Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, I really like Jamie Bell's vocals in this. I think
he doesn't sing enough.
Yeah, I agree. And I really like how they do use the motif of Goodbye Yellow Brick Road throughout this movie, and how it resolves in this. And I think it's just a really well done for the movie, in the movie, and then also just as a standalone soundtrack. I think it's done really well. I'm Still Standing sends off this movie terrifically, and it's the perfect song to end on, because it ends on a triumphant moment. And you feel like, oh, he's beaten it. And then, because Elton John is a real person and he's lived after that, like a clean life after that, And so, I mean, that's, it's a terrific way to finalize the movie. It is a very generic Elton John song. I'm not personally above a generic pop song sometimes. But it's Elton John, as far as generic pop songs go. If Elton John's going to sing it, I'm going to listen to it. But yeah, no, I think it does do it better though, with having it just, build slowly over time. I like it a lot. Sorry seems to be the hardest word, is going to be a one-time listen. It's, it's adequate for a one-time listen. Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. I think it's a download, and then I'm Still Standing, of course, is a rocking.
Yeah. Don, go for it.
I did not like Sorry seems to be the hardest word. I agree with Peter in that I wasn't a fan of the beginning part, but especially when the choir or whatever came in, it felt, I don't know, it just wasn't my thing.
Too extra?
Yeah.
Too what?
Too extra?
Yeah, it's just adding something that wasn't there, and I didn't understand the purpose of it.
Unnecessary.
He wasn't in a church with a choir behind him. Like, why is the choir singing? It just made no sense. So I would give that a one-time listen, because I love the original.
Oh, the original is great.
Yeah.
That's on Blue Moves, right?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay.
But I would give this version a one-time listen. Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, the original, is one of my favorites. I don't dislike what they did. I'm not a fan of songs being used in a movie to progress the plot. So when they split it up, it's like I Want Love. They split it up between him and Bernie, and I get it. I get why, I get what they were saying. I get the purpose of it, but I'm not a fan of that style. I just assume listen to Elton's original version. So Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. It's not a bad version of it. It's not my thing. So I'd give that a shuffle it. It's not a throwaway, but it's there's better versions of it. I'm still standing. It's a cheesy 80s pop song. I do think there's more behind it than if you listen to the lyrics, I think it's a stronger song than it could be made out to be.
Because of his addictions.
I don't want to get too deep into it as far as what it can mean. I mean, it can mean anything to anybody, but just surviving something and coming out on top afterwards. I mean, that's something deep. That's something a lot of people experience, and it's just unfortunately set to really catchy, cheesy 80s music. Fine. I mean, it's I always liked it growing up, and I like it now. And yeah, it's that kind of music that sends a movie off on a good note. And then the message behind the lyrics is even more apropos. So I'm still standing, just because I'd give it a download.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
that's cool. Yeah. All right, guys, we're going into the final song of the soundtrack, and it's only one song for this wave, and it's the final wave. It is I'm Gonna Love Me Again, which actually won the Oscar. Don, I'm gonna actually save you for last. Brooklyn, what do you think for I'm Gonna Love Me Again?
I remember watching it.
Did it deserve the Oscar?
It didn't. It didn't. I understand why though. It's Elton John. This was supposed to be his last year touring. That's sort of his last hurrah. I have to look a song up because I forgot to look it up. But the one from the Harriet Tubman movie, which I'm going to look up right now, I'm going to pretend that I know. I'm definitely not searching it. What's the name of that movie? It also got nominated for original song because her performance was really good. Harriet Tubman.
Isn't it just called Harriet?
I think it's called Harriet.
Yeah.
Harriet, yeah. So Cynthia Erivo, and then what was the name of the song?
Stand Up.
Stand Up. Okay, yeah. Sorry. Stand Up was I think if we're going off of performances overall, I think that would have been the correct choice if we're going off of overall quality. But yeah, I think it's sort of like it's almost generic, but I admire it too because you have to remember Elton John's over 70 whenever he's singing this, and to still perform at that age and at that quality, you have to admire it. Yeah. And just the effort that he put into it. You know what? It has a funk to it. It has a groove. And, if you're doing that at 70, you're doing good things.
It has a very before he released a record called Wonderful Crazy Night, and it opens with a song called Wonderful Crazy Night, and this kind of sounds like Wonderful Crazy Night if you ever heard that song. I don't know, Don, if you kind of know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
but it has that kind of quality to it, and it just feels like this was a cut song from that album session, and there's okay, we're cutting this song, but we're going to put this and make this a single at some point. Let's put this in the credit sequence of this film, and I think they did it. It's catchy. It's really catchy, and I think it's a great duet between Taron and Ellen. He literally sounds like he does on records like The One or it just sounds like he's 1998 Elton all over again. He sounds really good, and it's a fun song. It's catchy. It's really popcorn, and it makes you feel good. It makes you feel really good. It's one of those feel good summer songs. It would be good on that one of those kinds of lists. Peter, what are your thoughts on Gonna Love Me Again?
I absolutely love this song. When it came out, it was I don't know if it was a week or 2 weeks before the movie came out, but I saw that it came out and I was like, whoa, this is gonna be cool. And I listened to it probably 30 times before I watched the movie. I loved it so much. I think the way it's used in the credits, and I was the movie ends and then it's right into it, and it kind of I don't know, it doesn't work as well as like just listening to it by its own, I think. Or at
That's
least
the point.
yeah. Yeah. It's a great single. When Taryn enters, I get chills every single time. It's like it's buttery almost, you know. He just kind of slithers in there, and it makes you feel good. Like it is that perfect like summer single that you love. And I think the message behind it, I mean, it's kind of sums up the movie. You know, I'm gonna love me again. You know, through the movie, Elton learns to love himself, and you know, love the people around him, and you know, all these things. And I'm gonna love me again. You know, it's great. If I would give it a rating, I would give it my first and only hard rocking, because I think it's a perfect song for where Elton John is right now. And I mean, you know, he's 70, you know, in his 70s, and that's incredible that he still sounds like as spectacular as he does. Yeah, I love this song so much.
It's a hard rocking for me as well. Brooklyn, did you rate it before I go to Don?
Did I? No, I would put it. I put it as a shuffle list. Listen to it every now and then, but it could definitely lose touch. I can't imagine putting the song on repeat that many times. Like Peter mentioned, 30 times. I'd get bored of it after that.
Oh, okay. Don, your thoughts on this?
No, I dig it. As far as what Brooklyn was saying, it might be a throwback to someone who's been performing for writing and performing over 50 years. That could have played a role. I had to look up what the other nominees were, and I see Frozen 2, the live action Lion King, and Cats, the musical movie.
He got nominated twice next to each other. Elton.
Yeah, I have not heard Stand Up, so I can't talk to that. But as far as the others, yeah, I'd put it above the other three. I made mental notes to look up Aretha's Border Song, and I'll listen to Stand Up from Harriet to come up with ideas of that. But as far as this song, not one of my top 10 Elton songs of all time, but it's a good song. It's again, it blows my mind that having gotten really into him at Made in England, that he's still writing music that I consider heads and tails above a lot of the stuff that's done now. I mean, I'm not very worldly in, you know, all different genres of music for the last 20 years or so, but he has some of the best albums, complete albums. I'm talking straight through. Whereas even in his 70s, in the 1970s albums, as great as some of those songs are, I don't necessarily listen to the whole albums. Whereas songs from the West Coast, I can listen to that front to back, and I think it's an amazing album. Peachtree Road, same thing. The fact that he has 2 albums, and he was in his probably 60s, I guess, when he did those, maybe, and he's still writing, and to do it all with the same writing partner, that just, like, it'd be even more impressive if it was just him doing everything. But to find somebody who you can work on such an intimate level with for 50 years or whatever it was now, you don't see that. You don't. Nobody, who the hell else does that long, you know?
So what do you give it?
And don't forget, he covers the genres. He covers how many Broadway shows has he written? I mean, I know he wrote the music for the movies and everything, but he also
Billy Elliot.
Not all of them, right? Billy Elliot. Not all of them were hits. I mean, I saw Lestat, the vampire musical, and that was awful.
I think on Peachtree Road, doesn't he like put a bunch of those Billy Elliot songs in there, like "Merry Christmas, Maggie" something?
Well, I got those off of the Billy Elliot soundtrack or whatever it was.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, Merry Christmas, Maggie Thatcher. Great. Electricity. Those two are just absolutely wonderful.
Play that during Christmas.
He does a lot, and he works, and even then, the Broadway stuff isn't with Bernie. It's with Tim Rice, or you know, whoever else he wrote with. So to do what he's doing, even in the last 20 years of his career, is phenomenal. So yeah, if any of it is a throwback to somebody who maybe they feel deserved to get an Oscar, absolutely. Although I think he's won an Oscar before. I don't think he needed one.
He won an Oscar for Can You Feel the Love Tonight?
Yeah. So it's not like he didn't have one. So maybe it's not that. I don't know. But then I'd give this song I'd give it a rockin'.
Yeah, it's
I-
a good it's a good one.
I think it deserves a rockin'.
All right, guys.
we got Bernie and Oscar. That's what this one was. This was a lifetime achievement award for Bernie Taupin, and he deserved it. I will say though, one final note: I didn't enjoy the live performance that much.
Well, because Taron wasn't there.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And I was like, "Is Taron going to show up? Is Taron going to show up?" And then in his entrance, I was like, and then he didn't show up, and I was just so sad.
Not so buttery, not so buttery.
I think it had to do with the fact
there
that
wasn't enough butter.
the Oscars snubbed a lot of Rocketman's nominations. I think that's probably why. All right, guys, we're gonna go into each of us on the panel picked one song that did not make it into the to the movie, and for the most part, each of us picked our favorite Elton song. I'm gonna throw it to you, Peter, first. What did you pick? And when you say it, I'm gonna throw it to Brooklyn and Don. Your brief thoughts on the song and what you would have given it. All right, so go for it, Peter.
Funeral for a Friend / Love Lies Dying. And then do I talk about it or do they talk about it?
You talk about it first. Why did you pick Love Lies Bleeding?
This is my favorite Elton John song. I mean, it's clearly like two separate songs that were kind of like just thrown together, but the bridge to them is seamless, I think. And
It's 11 minutes.
Yeah, it's 11 minutes, and I love songs that like test your endurance almost, and but are still interesting for every single second. I do think the very beginning where it's kind of just like the wind and some chimes, while like I don't listen to that like that first like minute all the time, I do think it adds like a layer of like ambience to it, and it's so layered and effective, and that first instrumental part is so cool. It's just it's something else, and it's so unique, and I love that in artists catalogs where it's like this purely like unique thing. I mean, I know he's done other instrumentals and stuff, or like longer instrumental takes, and that's what he does in a lot of live shows, but I think for like his studio recorded albums, this is such a unique one. And then Love Lies Dying,
Love Lies Bleeding.
Gosh, forgot the last word of my own.
It's all good.
It's a long title, but I think this alone, Love Lies Bleeding, is such a catchy and like really great rock song. And I will, when I do work out, hasn't been a lot recently. When I do, like, I will listen to like the last like 6 minutes of this song, like the lead up into Love Lies Bleeding, and then Love Lies Bleeding, and like that just gets me going, and I think it's very special, and so that's why I love it so much.
Peter, you picking Funeral for a Friend is your age is really, really, really impressive. This was a really good choice. Love Lies Bleeding is phenomenal. It opens Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. It feels like a Meatloaf song. It's great. It has a huge introduction, and it has the themes of Candle in the Wind, which also surprisingly didn't make it into this film. I don't know how. Yeah. I don't know how Candle in the Wind didn't make it into the film, but it serves as a great overture. And I think he wrote Funeral for a Friend first, and then he wrote Love Lies Bleeding, and he realized, oh, you could transition between the key of A pretty easily.
Right.
So boom, you got the transition right there. Brooke, what are your thoughts on Funeral?
I mean, this is essentially Elton's venture into prog rock, and this makes me want to like really dive into Elton's deep cuts and see like what other attempts that he would take at different genres. Because as somebody like who was into like Rush and like your King Crimsons and your Yes, and then it threw me off guard because I didn't think that Elton would dabble into prog rock.
Was this the first time you heard this?
Oh yeah, this is the first time I heard it.
Wow.
It's really good. But it's gonna be added into my list. But I'd say of the songs that I had never heard before, this is probably my favorite of the bunch.
Oh, beautiful. Don, what are your thoughts on it? You don't have to give this a rating. It's just talking about Funeral.
Well, just because I'm not a prog rock guy, so Brooklyn, I would ask you, like, I'd be curious if you find any others that he did of that style, because I don't. This is the only. I have a general idea of prog rock, but I don't really listen to it, so I don't know. But you might find this is the only time he did that specific genre. But I think this is an epic song, and it's. But then let me ask you also, as a prog rock fan, like, do you then how does it feel when it becomes the more poppy rock song?
I kind of like the transition because it reminds me of a lot of Rush. Rush would have sort of these bigger, sort of grander intros, and Geddy Lee. Well, I mean, if we're comparing them instantaneously to Rush, Geddy Lee has sort of the similar vocal, I wouldn't say vocal qualities, but like just how they start up songs. And I was thinking like, I don't think Elton can go too heavy into like prog rock vocally wise, so it has to sort of compromise, and I think he does a really good job. Really good job of that.
All right, yeah, I mean, I love the song. I remember, I think it came up on Shuffle one time, and that's how I first heard it. This is years ago. Yeah, I think it's phenomenal as an opener, and I think it's
he still does it live too, which is phenomenal.
Yeah,
and the live.
Yeah. He has a killer bands, obviously, so the band just nails it, and it's phenomenal. Yeah.
And that lower register is great.
Yeah, the live performances of this are terrific. And the reason I know this so well and I love it so much is because the first Elton John album, I guess, that I downloaded was the deluxe version of Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, which has like 30 songs or whatever on it, and this is one of those. And so like all those songs on there are like classic Elton John to me, even if they aren't like well known or something, but like this was one of those that I was like, whoa, this is kind of cool.
Yeah, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road has a lot of good deep cuts. Like I think Alice is a good one. And there's also what is the Roy Rogers? That's a good one too. And Gray Seal, and Your Sister Don't Twist or whatever. That's the prelude to that one's good. Yeah, and it goes right into Saturday's All Right for Fighting.
But there is, I have to say, there's no other song like Funeral for a Friend. Never even mind what genre, just nothing.
It's unique. It's so unique.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah. I just wish they could have fit it in somewhere. I don't know where, but yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So Brooklyn, you presented one of the biggest fan favorites songs.
Yeah.
What song did you select?
I selected Leave On. I think in terms of casual fans, this is considered like a middle tier, sort of like a. It's good, but it's no Crocodile Rock. It's no Benny and the Jets. But I would disagree, and I think for more of the hardcore fans, this is a little more appreciated. In terms of, I would consider this Elton's greatest vocal performance. You really get to see his range, and you really get to see the emotion that he can pack into a song. I think what really helped me for this one is that. There was a gentleman on Canadian Idol. I think it was 4 years Canadian Idol was a thing, and there was a gentleman who covered this song, and he just hit it out of the park. And that sort of attached me to it. And it has those characteristics of simple songs, like I talked about before, where it really only has the strings, the piano, and then I think just a drum kit and maybe even a little bit of horns. But that's really all it needs, and I think it's just that simplistic approach that draws me to a lot of Elton songs. But I think this is the best version of that concept.
Yeah, Peter, what are your thoughts on Leave On?
I mean, Leave On, he likes his money.
Oh yeah, that's
he really does. I mean, this is a great song. I love it. I don't get tired of hearing it. It's great. And I think it is underappreciated amongst general audiences. Definitely not as famous for sure. But it's great. I mean, it is a top tier Elton John song, and it deserves to be in the conversation for top tier Elton John songs. And I agree with everything Brooklyn says. And thinking about it, this is probably his greatest vocal performance. I mean, it's just so rich.
Yeah, I don't understand how this only made it to like number 30 or something on the charts. Yeah. And also Brooklyn, you're gonna find that a lot of fans love this song because in Elton, I don't think there's ever been a show where he's never done it, and every time he's done it live, it's been like 13 minutes. They really jam this live, and it's phenomenal. I would recommend you go on YouTube and see a live version of it. It is insane. Don, you probably witnessed a couple of those. What are your thoughts on Leave On?
Well, Leave On is it's in the same category as Honky Cat and oh god, I'm losing my brain here. Honky Cat and it's better. It's even better live.
Benny and the Jets, wasn't that the other one?
Benny and the Jets. There's something about the live performance that just and he cannot sing like that anymore. I mean, I love him. he doesn't even attempt to, and he doesn't need to because the audience
He lowers
goes,
it. Yeah.
yeah, and it's just the energy with the band, and it goes on forever. It's just it's awesome. It's awesome. It's a great song.
Yeah, it's a jam. It's a jam. I picked personally. There's a song. There's an album that he released with, what's his name? Leon Russell back in 2010. This is one. This also is a song that he's done live numerous times. It's a song called "Hey Ahab," and I feel like the energy of this song, along with just this is current Elton at his best. This really just gives you the motion that you're on a boat, and it just makes you feel. And I just love the feeling of this song. I love the lyrics of this song. I just love the emotion that's packed into this song, and the piano, which is 2 pianos that's packed into this song, along with Leon harmonizing with Evan, with Elton, and it's just I called him Evan with Elton, and it's just so energetic. It's just so I know it's not in the upper echelon of the greatest Elton songs ever written. I think the greatest Elton song ever written is a song called "The Last Song" about AIDS, which is on I think it's the last song on the album, The One. Yeah, last song is up there. This Train Don't Stop There Anymore is up there. The Bridge, which is on Captain and the Kid, is up there. But I feel like just for this show's purpose, and I felt like the song that you guys would probably find a little bit more to talk about would be "Hey Ahab," and it's a record that's often ignored, The Union. Don, what are your thoughts on "Hey Ahab"?
Yeah, it's fun. I actually find when I listen to it, I find myself singing the lower octave vocal.
Yeah.
Guess that right out of here. So I love the Leon counterpart that Elton's singing, and it's fun, it's rocking, and it's all good.
Yeah, there's a lot of substance here, but it wouldn't have worked in this film at all. Brooklyn, what are your thoughts on "Hey Ahab"?
I mentioned this on Jam Session and how this is essentially the most Chris Clark Elton John song. It has all those things. I could just see Chris singing the song, and he's just stomping along to it because it has that boldness, that gravitas. It reminds me a lot actually of a train. And it has that Western sort of like old timey sort of vibe, and I think that really and that's where I think his age really comes into the play, because you get that sort of that grit and that roughness to it, and that fits well with the song, and especially with Leon Russell, where he is like God measured that much lower voice. So you need sort of that, like, it's almost like the icing on top of the cake.
Yeah, it's fun. Peter, have you ever listened to The Union? What are your thoughts on?
No, I haven't, and that's one that I know I've been recommended it before, and that's one that I really am interested to listen into further. This was the first time I'd heard the song personally, and I really digged it. I love the low Leon Russell part. It's just so fun, and that driving force. Chris, I think you said it perfectly. It does feel like a ship. You know, you kind of get that like rocking feeling, and the 2 pianos, they mesh so well together, and it just creates a lot of sound, and it's really fun. I really enjoyed it, and I'm really looking forward to listening to The Union at a later time. Yeah,
there's a lot of good songs like Monkey Suit, and there's a couple of goodies. So Don, you picked something off of Petrie Road, which is one of my favorite records as well. What do you what song did you pick, and what is it?
I picked a song called "My Elusive Drug," and it's just I think it tells a great story, a great personal story. And personally, I love the slow kind of almost like a drawl to it. I think it gives it almost like a.
It sounds like something off of Cold Spring Harbor. Kind of.
I don't know. I'd have to think about that, but I think like lyrically it expresses. Almost like a sadness kind of feel to it, but I think musically it almost has like a sultriness to it. I find I don't know. It always stuck with me for some reason. I played it and sang it. I love it. I think
you played on the piano, right?
Yeah.
I think I remember you sound checking once with this.
It's possible,
it's beautiful. Brooklyn, what are your thoughts on this? This is a beautiful song.
Yeah, this is a really good song. It's the closest thing to like Elton doing sort of like a noir song.
Yeah.
I agree with Don. The more that I listen to it, it reminds me a lot of like Elton, or not Elton, Eric Clapton, into like what he would do with some of like his like 90s to 2000s stuff. And I think like whenever he went back on tour with Cream, and I think to sort of like the emphasis into the lyrics or whatnot, you can really get a sense of like sorrow and pain. And it makes me really want to check out the rest of this record, because this is the first time that I've heard it. And I was unaware of how good his work was in the 2000s. So.
Yeah. Check out Petrie Road. There's also a great rock song about a man turning into a woman called They Call Her the Cat. It's really fun. Peter, what are your thoughts on
I'm currently listening to it for the first time here. I didn't get a chance to listen.
No, it's all good.
But I really like I'm just at about a minute here. But I already love it. Like it's already probably like I don't know where I would put it right now, but just listening to a first minute of it, I could see it easily being in my top 20 favorites. Like I love how like you do feel sorrow. Like I feel like it's in my soul already. And yeah, no, I'm very excited to hear the rest of this album. I mean the rest of the song as well. But yeah, no, and I do really like the richness of Elton John's voice. You know, he's a little bit older in this record, and you can really tell he's just going for it, and it's so simplistic too, and I like that a lot. So yeah, a very, very cool song.
Yeah, this is the power of some of the deep cuts. You don't realize what you're missing out until you listen to something, and you realize, oh shit, I kind of like this more than some of the hits. And this is kind of one of those instances where I knew Don was going to pick something like that was really piano heavy, because he likes Cold Spring Harbor. Don, you think that isn't Got to Begin Again your favorite Billy song or something, right?
It's up there, yeah.
Yeah, or Tomorrow Is Today too. Like this is totally a Don song, and I really love the fact that you chose this. It's a great song.
It was between this or the other one was My Quicksand on the diving board.
Oh, My Quicksand. Yeah, I like Oceans Away too. Oceans Away is beautiful. Oceans Away is essentially or My Quicksand. That whole album is phenomenal. It's all piano based though. Complete opposite from Wonderful Crazy Night. Okay, guys, before we head off, we're just going to do one more thing, and it's the overall rating of the soundtrack. I'm going to go to each of you, and the entire soundtrack, do you rate it rockin', download it, etc.? Okay, so Peter, what do you give the overall soundtrack to Rocketman?
I'm gonna do something real quick here. I'm just gonna put on my Elton John shades here. These have been the hit of several high school dances. I've had people come up to me and like literally take them off my face and not come back for like 10 minutes while they're just wearing them around. But I would give this overall soundtrack, I would give it this one that I have right here, that I listen to a lot. I would give it a download. There are songs on here that are, like they're not a great representation of what the best of Elton John is, but there are some that do, do better than the original. Some of the lesser known hits or the lesser known songs that do take what the essence of the original is and do it well. And some of the hits are done really well as well. So yeah, I enjoy this soundtrack a lot, and I think it's a download it. Not perfect, but quite good.
Interesting. Brooklyn.
Yeah, I would agree with Peter in that it is a download. Some versions are better than the originals, and some don't hold a candle to the other ones. I think I would give it that rating purely for like the generation sort of younger than us. If this is somehow the first time you're listening to Elton John, this is a great avenue to sort of explore. And if it's like, all right, well, if you like these songs, then go check out the originals and like go check out things. So for that younger crowd, it's a definite download.
Yeah, I applaud the soundtrack for giving a little bit more open doors to some of the deep cuts. I don't think the deep cuts are some of the best versions on there, but at least they tried, and they gave a lot of attention to songs that you wouldn't necessarily have thought they would put in, like Amarina or Rock and Roll Madonna. But overall, I would give this probably a shuffle it. There were a lot of great performances on this, and every performance is awesome and does its job in the film. But a couple things do fall flat when you try to compare it to the original version, and you want to see if it kind of can stand on its own. And some things just fall flat, and that's just how it is, and that's how the cookie crumbles. But it's not a terrible soundtrack in the slightest, but I would prefer to just listen to it on shuffle. Don, what are your final thoughts on Rocketman and your final rating of it?
I would give it a shuffle as well. I agree. I think it's great that they went deeper than just all the hits and the well-known songs. I do think Taron did a wonderful job vocally. To me, it just doesn't. It's not a collection of songs for the soundtrack of a movie. It's a borderline cast recording, which is not what I'm really into. Yeah, I think it's a nice selection of songs, and again, I think it's a decent primer for Elton's music. I mean, in the end, it's still a collection of whatever 26 or 22 awesome, well-written songs. So I certainly won't take that away from it, but I would still go get the same collection of songs, but the studio Elton versions or the live versions if you can get. So yeah, shuffle it, I think. Yeah.
It is all cool. This soundtrack was great. Thank you guys for being such a great panel. I'm going to go to each and every one of you to just sign off. Peter, where can the good people find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at KansasViking32. I have a YouTube channel, Kansas Viking. And I will say one last thing that I just remembered is I took my friend to go see this, and he liked some of the Elton John hits, but he had never really fully dived deep into it. And after this movie, we listened to Elton John the entire way back on his request because he really loved the music in it. And I agree that Brooklyn, that it is a great primer for especially younger people who don't know Elton John music. It does a great job at, priming people for it. But yeah, thank you so much for having me on this. This was a blast.
Yeah. Brooklyn, where can the good people find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at TheRealBK10. You can find me on Multiplex. I do Multiplex Miscellaneous, and there's a pop culture trivia show we do every Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, as well as Jam Session is a music podcast I do every other Monday. It's sort of an interview process. Chris, as of recording, was one of our more recent guests, and we got to talk Meatloaf and Billy Joel as expected. But yeah, and Letterboxd at Brookie B10. I've been logging a lot of movies, but again, Chris, Peter, Don, it's a super great time. My second favorite movie of 2019. I'm so glad we got to kind of talk the soundtrack and Elton John.
We just talked 2 hours of Elton John. That's great.
What was your first favorite?
My first favorite, Booksmart.
Oh, which one? Interesting. Mine,
Booksmart.
Yeah.
Books. I don't know that.
It's about the lesbian.
It's essentially the female version of Superbad, but it's a lot better.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
You should check it out. Don, go for it.
I'm not really on anything. I'm on my way off of Facebook. Twitter just kind of disgusts me. No offense to anybody present company. So yeah, you can't really find me anywhere. Talk to Chris. He'll find me if you really want to find me.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, this was a good time. It's good talking shop about something I like with other people who like it. So I dig that.
Yeah, I'm probably going to contact you because what's your favorite musical besides this? You like Dear Evan Hansen, right, Don?
Like Broadway show?
Yeah. What's your favorite Broadway show?
I liked Dear Evan Hansen was a lot better than I thought it would be.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to not like things when they're overhyped.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have no interest in seeing Hamilton, but I'm gonna watch it. But I don't really have an interest in seeing it. So I'd say my favorite musical, I mean Little Shop, obviously, but I'll get back to you. I have to look at what guest recordings I have.
You should. Okay, we'll talk about
Lion King.
Lion King. Okay.
I enjoyed Lion King. The animated movie, the Broadway musical. Yeah, Lion King.
Just talk more with Elton. All right.
And Les Mis too.
Les Mis. I noted. I'm just trying to figure out what other stuff I can maybe get you on. Okay. So guys, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at ChrisClark8788. Those numbers mean nothing. So from Don, from Brooklyn, and from Peter, I am Chris. We say to you, keep rocking.